Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami Stacklehouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse, and this is episode 89. In today's episode, you're going to hear a conversation between Melissa Swanson and myself. Melissa and I met about 8 years ago at the Leaders Against Pain Scholarship Training back in 2014. In today's interview, you're going to hear where she and I both were back in 2014 when we were at that event, what our fibromyalgia symptoms were like. Then Melissa is going to share a little bit about a knee surgery that she had recently. I know a lot of you have actually asked me about having surgeries and how to do that when you have fibromyalgia and whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. So Melissa is going to be sharing her experience there. And then you will hear about an adventure that she and I went on at the end of July, just a few weeks ago. And to be honest, blew both of our minds for what we could actually accomplish now with our fibromyalgia. Now, let me go ahead and read you Melissa's official bio, and then we'll jump right into the interview. Melissa Swanson is a chronic pain patient, advocate, and author. Through her Fibro Warriors Living Life Facebook page, she offers positive encouragement, medical information, resources, and support to 20,000 plus fibromyalgia and chronic pain patients. In addition, Melissa is the author of Raven's Doll, How to Explain Fibromyalgia to Your Child. She's also a program director with the International Support Fibro Network. Melissa is a graduate of the Leaders Against Pain Scholarship Training, sponsored by the National Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Association, and she's a graduate of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. Melissa works with clients as a Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor, helping them learn tools to live with the chronic illness fibromyalgia. If you're looking for a cheerleader to be in your corner with a little bit of tough love when needed, Melissa is the one for you. She understands the struggles of trying to balance family life and work while living with the challenges of fibromyalgia and its evil sidekicks. Now, before we hop into the interview, of course, I just have to give the disclaimer. The information that you're going to hear in this interview is not meant to be considered medical advice. Even the crazy things that Melissa and I got up to recently, it is not necessarily recommended that you do that too. Definitely make sure that you're talking with a qualified physician or other healthcare provider about your specific situation before you get into trouble to help you find ways to feel your best. Make sure you stay tuned after the interview for our listener shout out and some more information. All right, awesome. I am so excited to have you here to share about our wild and crazy adventures and a little bit about your story. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned in the introduction, you and I have known each other for a while now. And I would love to kind of just go back to that day before we talk about our adventure, just so people can understand like why it was such a big deal for both of us back in, what was that, 2014?
It was.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like, what was life like for you back in 2014? What was your fibro like?
Yeah. When you asked me, it's like to talk about that. What I like about it is I had to actually really think about it now because things have changed so much that now I have to really sit down and remember, okay, that far back, what stage was I at that time when we first met? And I know that when we first met, just even sitting, we were sitting listening to speakers, and we were supposed to, take notes and answer some questions and things like that. And that was too much for us. By the end of the day, we were just exhausted. My family had come out with me that weekend out to Salt Lake City and they were off doing adventures while I was sitting there doing the training. And I wasn't able to go on any of the hikes or any of the stuff that they were doing because physically I wasn't able to do it. It would have thrown me into, I don't know how long of a lasting flares. I would flare up at least once or twice a month. They could last for 2 days. Sometimes they could last for a week. They'd come along with the migraines, and I had the chronic fatigue and just kind of all the other evil sidekicks that go along with it. So even to just be able to get through those days where we were sitting there just with other people who had fibromyalgia who got it was long. I mean, it was a lot of effort just to even be able to do that much. And I remember even getting up and walking back to the elevators to go to our rooms or something was a difficult task, just exhausted and sore everywhere. And we were all taking out all of our tools and everything else just so we could try to get some sleep so we could do it again the next day.
Right, right. I remember for me, I had been doing actually pretty well before I went, and I did okay the first day, but like the next day, the second day when I woke up, I was like, "Oh no, I'm coming down with a cold. Everything is achy. Oh my goodness, this isn't a time to get sick." Then the other shoe dropped and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, you
this
forget.
is this is fibro pain," and I kind of had forgotten. And so, I had to take my pain meds for that.
Which you hadn't had to do for a while and
Yeah.
stuff. I know. I mean, and just thinking of doing any of the stuff that my family was doing at that time while we were going through the training and stuff. Like I said, with the flares, I can't even imagine what it would have been like for me to get through, flying home again, let alone, trying to get back to work afterwards when I would get back because the pain or the fatigue would have been just so high that it would have taken such a long time for me to recover. And that was because that was something extraordinarily and different. We were traveling, we were flying, and we were doing all of this, which it was hard enough for me to do my day to day stuff, just get through work. So I had enough energy and could go to whatever activity our daughter was doing at the time and then go back home and rest or do whatever I had to do so I could just do it again just to get through the day.
Right. And I remember you wearing your sunglasses a lot.
I got a comment about that. That is so funny because about 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of my coworkers said, I don't remember you wearing those at all this entire school year. And they're right, because I did wear them all the time because the lights were too bright, everything, the noise was too much. I still have photophobia, but it's not as much where it doesn't put me into migraines or anything anymore. And I did wear them all the time. And my coworker was just like, I don't think I remember this whole school year. And I'm like, I don't think I did either. I was like, pretty cool. You forget about those things that I had to do on every single day basis just to get through the day. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I don't even think about that part anymore.
Yep. Yep. Now, not too long after you and I met is when I first started my training classes. And you were one of the very first people to sign up for that very first program.
I was. Yeah.
So that was really cool. And one of the things that I remember during that time was you had a bad knee, and it was a big trigger for a lot of other pain.
I did. Yeah. I had been injured in a dog training injury where I was training a hunting dog and she turned around and she ran into my knee and ripped the meniscus. And they had done a surgery and that didn't go well. The recovery didn't go well. And I had to have another surgery. And, it wasn't good. They were like, oh, you're kind of too young to really do anything about it. Let's just hold off a little bit more. But the pain was more than it should have been. Of course, now knowing with fibro, with the amplification of everything, it was intense and it would definitely bother me a lot more where I wouldn't be able to go on, like we're saying, with our walks and our hikes and everything like that too.
Yeah, I remember a couple of the other trips that we've been on, you wearing some of your devices.
Oh my gosh, I've got such devices, and there's so many of them that have worked incredible for me. And I have this tool chest of all these things. And I even brought them with me on my vacation out to see you. I brought two of them with me thinking I might need them. And I brought my cane thinking I might need it. And I haven't used it for almost at least 11 months, almost 12. But it was one of those things where I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm traveling again and I'm pushing myself, going to do a few things that I don't normally do. And I might need all of these things. Brought my extra medication and I never even opened them the entire time. So a little different. It's
That's
a
just
little different
amazing.
from the last time that I'm not all tied up with all these equipment when I go through the airport security. This time I didn't have to show them all of my tool medical devices that are on me. I just had to let them know that my knee was going to ding on them and stuff, and that was kind of a good change.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. Now, I get a lot of questions from just listeners emailing in, but also from clients who are really worried about surgeries, whether it's like a knee replacement, like in your case, or other kinds of surgeries, because there's this fear that I'm barely getting through it right now, and then surgery is going to be so much more painful. And what kind of a flare is that going to cause? I would love for you to share some of your experience with your knee replacement, what that was like, the recovery, your fibro symptoms, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was really worried about it too. And I put it off an extra year. And with COVID, when that happened, we were able to go back in person with school with our kids. So I put it off even another year because I wanted to make sure that what if something happens and the knee surgery doesn't go well because of fibro and what's going to do? And I can't do that to the kids because we haven't been together for that long of a time. And I was so concerned and worried about what it was going to be like. And is it going to make things that much more worse? How am I supposed to do any of my other stuff? I religiously do what the doctor told me to do with the strengthening exercises beforehand, where I had to do a lot of leg lifting things or, different stuff to try to make the other muscles be a little bit stronger. That was brutal. I just was sore afterwards. It really didn't do much to my fibro, but I mean, it was hard and it was exhausting. Physically, it was exhausting for me to do because I had been in so much pain with the fibro for such a long time. And then I've gotten that pretty good. And the knee was getting worse and worse that I really wasn't able to do much. The fatigue part of it, of everything, was what was really taking over my body, was just the fatigue with the knee pain. I was doing little, very, very little anything. And so just to do those little leg lifts was a lot. But I did it because they said, if you want to heal faster, if you want to get through this, you've got to be able to do this because as soon as the surgery is over, you're up and running and you're going to have to be able to, do these things. Surgery went really well. I was really lucky that I got a great doctor in the area, that I knew some people who had fibromyalgia that had total knee replacements with this doctor. So I felt really good about that because at least he's worked with some fibro people in the past. And I was young enough that they put me up in their super special treatment thing where you don't have to go to the hospital. You can actually just stay in this really fancy hotel for the first night of therapy and everything. And so I was happy that they thought I was too young for the hospital. So that was good.
Hey, at our age, feeling
I'll
a
take
little
it.
bit young is good.
No, I'll take that. But I was surprised at the amount of swelling and the bruising that I didn't realize how much I was going to have. That was kind of a little bit alarming to me. But I was amazed because I was walking for the first time in years with no pain. And I just thought that was the strangest thing in the world, that how that could possibly even be happening, that I didn't feel anything anywhere else either. And the knee was feeling good, and I'm walking. And I noticed that with the swelling going down as the surgery and the recovery went along, and the rehab, is I was recovering a lot faster than they expected I would too. which before surgery, they said, because of your illnesses, we really expect the recovery to take longer than normal. You're probably going to take at least half time longer, if not longer than normal, because of all the stuff that you have wrong with you. You're not going to get ready as fast. And I'm like, okay, I need to drive by the 4th of July week, or at least enough that I can go to the cabin. I promise you, I won't go in the lake. I won't do anything, and I just kind of did everything before the surgery. And I was able to sit by the lake at least for the 4th of July.
Right.
But I surprised them that I was actually healing faster than most people, and that the fibro wasn't a reaction to any of the stuff at all. The fatigue still comes and goes with that and everything, while I was trying to build up the strength again in that leg and then the knee. I would get a little much more tired than normal, but I didn't have any kind of a flare up from the fibro at all.
That's amazing. How much of that do you think was things that they did during the surgery to help manage your pain? And how much of that was work that you did, just like improving your fibromyalgia management before ever getting to surgery?
Oh, I think most of it was what I've changed over the years and stuff, because, even when we first met, I was trying to figure out where those things factor in. And I had been much, much worse before we met. And then when we met in 2014, I was doing a little bit better. I just started a new job. Things were, a little bit better than they had been previously. And then I did sign up, like you'd said previously, for your first go around of your classes and everything. And when I signed up, I thought, well, it'd be great to be an advisor or coach rather and stuff. I thought that'd be fun. But more or less, I really wanted to sign up so that I could know how to help myself, is really the reason I wanted to do it. And I did use so many of those tools and still do, where I go back if I forget some of those things. And changing like my sleep, to not realizing how important it was before, but to get that under control was really one of my first most important things that I had to change. And changing some of the diet, being able to change that was important. The doing the rest movement, being able to balance those kind of things, and just a bunch of little stuff. But I think that most of it was because I've been changing since that point up into the surgery. And then when I knew I was going to have the surgery, I was even kind of putting a little bit more effort towards, even, to be able to be even more physically stronger now, so that I would be ready for it too.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, how long was it from your injury to when you had your knee replacement?
I think the injury was in 1994, maybe
So that's
93,
that's a
93
while.
or 94. Yeah.
Maybe we won't do that math.
Trying to figure out how long ago that was, shall we? Yeah, time.
Oh my goodness. Which then makes sense why it was so remarkable to you to be able to walk without pain, because you had spent, what was that, a good 30 years or something?
I was used to it, it was something that was normal for me to have that, and then, it just kept getting worse, because eventually it was bone on bone. I mean, when they went in there to do it, there was, in the last year, that's what it had come down to, because have them wanting to do it, one in August, and then I said, nope, not happening, and then we didn't do it till the following school year got out in June. And so, then, so now it's been just over, like 13 months, almost, 14 months here going almost. And it's fantastic.
That's
It does
amazing.
I still have where at night, I still like, last night, for instance, it was achy, but I'm also not 1994 age anymore either.
We won't do that math for sure.
I had to do some ice last night a little bit while I was sleeping, because it was achy, but that's just okay. I can handle that. That's just normal age aches, and I can take that. That has nothing to do with, fibroflare aches or anything. So I'm okay with that.
That's awesome. So let's fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. You came out to visit me, and we decided we were going to get in a little bit of trouble. A little bit of trouble. We might have gotten into a lot of trouble. And so we went out in search of Melmont Ghost Town, which is, for those of you who don't know, where we were going out in the middle of nowhere on Mount Rainier.
The middle of nowhere, meaning signs eventually say this is your last gas station and no more Wi-Fi service at all, period.
Yes, yes. We were well into the no cell service zone. And so, just to kind of catch people up, we first followed some directions that we thought were right, but ended up being wrong. And we're hiking out, literally making our own trail, probably where there was no trespassing signs, I think.
It was a trail. It was just made by deer previously.
Oh my goodness. And I don't know, how long do you think we walked around out there in the wrong place?
I think we were out there at least an hour because we were trying to figure out like how many steps and how many stuff we had actually gone in the wrong direction. But in fairness, it was exactly the directions that we were reading. I mean, we did it, we followed it, and it led us kind of where it looked like it was right.
Except there was no ghost town.
It was wrong.
Oh my goodness, that was wild. Oh, I should also mention here that Seattle was having a heat wave of record high temperatures. It was like, I don't know, 95 degrees out there while we were doing all this craziness.
Yeah, I get back home and everybody back here was going, "Oh my God, we saw you guys were having unbearable amount of heat. They never have that kind of heat." And I said, "Yeah, that's what I was told." And it was actually, I think, 98 that day, if I remember correctly. So
Yes, you're right. You're
it was
right.
pretty hot. Yeah, I didn't want it. It was sticky.
It was crazy. So after walking around for a while, an hour out in the middle of nowhere, we decided, okay, that we're not going to find the place. We went and found the ranger station. You had a couple of interesting conversations with the rangers. We
Yeah,
got ourselves a map.
we did. A nice handwritten map that I think they spent their time on making for everybody. And we were on the way again. And we weren't that far off from where we were. We'd gone over the bridge we had to go back to. So we were in the right area.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I remember the first, how did they say it? Hop the rail, right? Was
Hop
that?
the rail. Go to the bridge and you have to go across the bridge and hop the rail, is what they said.
In other words, we had to go over the guardrail that was next to the highway.
Well, and first, there's nowhere to park. You have to literally like go down the road and find a place. And I don't know what they call them. Don't they? You guys have different words for those kind of things when there's those side parts against the. We're literally up against the cliff where there's all these rocks going straight up against the wall and trees and everything else. And so we're parked up there having to walk across this and wait for people to cross because it's a one-way bridge. So you have to wait for the other traffic to go through and then walk across and hop over a very hot metal guardrail.
Yeah.
And then look at what we get to go down.
Oh my goodness, you guys. The directions said it was a quote, steep but manageable trail. And if y'all have seen my Facebook posts or Melissa's Facebook posts recently, I guess we did manage it, but that description was not written by a middle-aged woman with fibromyalgia.
No, it was, when we first started to go down, you were first. And then I saw that there was this big, huge metal cable attached underneath the bridge because it's this really huge bridge and you're having to literally climb down it, which is kind of under it. And they have this metal cable, and attached to that there's these metal handbar things that you're supposed to like hold onto, so kind of like you're rock climbing, but you later looked up and said it's more like boulder climbing, bouldering, yeah. And then the hot sticky tar is right there too because it's on the railroad ties that's underneath going down under the bridge.
That was crazy. I just went first because I'm like, okay, I guess we need to get down. What did you think as you were watching me do that?
Oh my gosh. I was like, well, when you were holding on to it and you were going down and everything like that, I just kept looking at, I mean, it literally looked like it was straight down from way up high when you were looking at it. And there was no steps. I mean, these are just rocks that are jutted in and out and everything. And you're just trying to find places that you can put your feet while you're holding on to these handles as well and going down. And I was just hoping that we were gonna make it down. I wasn't gonna watch you fall down to the bottom because we have no self-service or anything at this point in time. I couldn't believe we were gonna do it. I mean, we're still doing it. You're doing it, and I still can't believe we were going to do this, but
I don't think I really realized as I started down, because at first it kind of started looking like a normal trail, but just kind of steep. And then, like halfway down, three-quarters of the way down, I don't know, somewhere along there, it turned into these boulders. And there were a few spots where, like, it was farther down than like I could step. I had to like sit down at one point and kind of
Mhm.
slide over a boulder.
Yeah, I remember that. We should get a video. Oh my gosh.
Oh, seriously, seriously. So we made it to the bottom.
Yep, with my water bottle tucked inside, because we were not prepared for this at all. I mean, thank gosh I had my mom's school pack on, so we had at least a few things with us, but, we weren't very well prepared for it. But we made it down,
We did. And it was amazing.
and it was flat. It was this flat path road, absolutely flat.
Yeah. Well, it was where the old railroad tracks used to be, right underneath there. So it was perfectly flat, nice, wide, easy trail, except getting there. So we walked down for a while looking for the ghost town. We thought we found it. We did not find it. Doing a
No,
little bit
but
of
we
research
found a very
afterwards.
good wall. We found a very nice retaining wall is what we found.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it was so stinking hot. So I remember at one point thinking, you know what? I have to go back up that hill. And I think that's about when I told you, I think we need to turn around because if we keep going, I don't know if I'm going to have enough left in me to get up that hill. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was. And when we got back to the bottom of it, it was kind of interesting because there was this group of young kids, well, probably early 20s, maybe, do you think,
I was
coming
thinking
down?
late teens, early 20s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, somewhere around there. And they were coming down, and, it was nice that they were struggling a little bit because it kind of made me feel even a lot better because I remember at one point I told them, I'm like, okay, come on, if we could do this, you guys can certainly come down here if we're able to do that. But I was just happy. I kept talking to them, and I think I really didn't want them to leave because the minute they were going to leave, that meant we were going to actually have to go back up again, and I thought the longer we kept talking to these kids, we were going to be able to just stay there and not have to think about having to go back up again.
Yes, I remember thinking something quite similar. I also remember that I was like, that seems really far up there. I wonder how high that is. And so I actually looked at the elevation of my phone. And when all was said and done, it was actually a 50-foot change in elevation, almost straight up these boulders, rocks, craziness. So
Yeah,
you went first, going back
yeah.
up.
I went first going back up, and you kept telling me that going back up was going to be easier, is what you kept telling me.
Wishful thinking or
I
something.
don't think that really was the case, but I mean, in the beginning, it seemed like it was, because going down, it was kind of like what you said. I remember going down my very last step. I just sit there and go, oh, I don't think my knees stretched quite that far yet. I just got a new range, because we had to get that far down. But when we got towards the top, it was very difficult. There was really hardly any place for us to be able to grab or where we were supposed to put our feet. And we had to use a post and just to be able to get around. That was really the hardest part, was that just that end section to be able to get up and around. But it was supposed to be easy, but it was not very easy at all.
Steep but manageable.
Keep it manageable. But then I remember all we kept telling each other for the rest of this entire, well, first of all, after we both finally get up there and celebrate this fact that we're up there, we start walking back towards the car. And all of a sudden, there's like this tree that like fell down out of those rocks.
There was a little bit of a landslide right there onto the highway, right next to my car that wasn't there before.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that would have been fun. Thank goodness it was like where it happened and stuff. And then the whole way back, we're just sitting there going, nobody's going to understand what a big deal this was. And at that point, we were still just like, and we still are like, I can't believe I did that. That was just amazing.
There were parts where I was literally pulling myself up by my arms using that cable because there was no solid place to put my feet because it was really like a little bit of loose dirt or something. I just, yeah, it was a lot harder than what I normally do in my everyday life.
Yeah, I don't think I normally do any of that. And you're right. Cause like going down, we were like literally using those handles and that cable to hold ourselves so that our feet wouldn't slide down too far as we would keep moving down. But going up, we had to use those same things and we had to use our arms to pull ourselves up because of those things. And so it was really a lot of arm work too. And I mean, it was just a lot of everything work. And it was hot. Like we said, too, we were definitely didn't have enough water in us, too, for it. But yeah, so besides being shocked that we actually did it, I know, and that you gave us a new title and all that, I love.
That were fibro badasses.
Yeah, so much. But the best thing too is afterwards, like even the next day when we woke up, because I thought for sure I was going to have to take something. Oh, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take some Tylenol PM or something like that, or something, or I would have filled up my ice bag or something like that. And I didn't even do that night. And I felt fine. I mean, I was a little sore in a couple places, like, but not like anything different than that if I did a little too much yard work at home or something like that and overdid it a little bit.
Yeah, I remember I had like my calf muscles were a little sore, my arm muscles were a little bit sore, but like any normal person would have if they did something a little bit more strenuous than they usually do. I mean, I've hurt worse coming out of the gym, you know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I do like the fact two things. One, I like the fact that Scott actually understood and was impressed by us because that just made me feel so good and wonderful that he was like just absolutely impressed like, that we were able to accomplish it as much as we were impressed that we were able to. But the better thing is it your massage therapist?
Yeah. Yeah, Isabella, if you hear this, Isabella, hello. Yeah, it was funny. She's like, wait a minute, that bridge? Seriously? So it was really good for because it's really hard to communicate quite just how impressive that was and no fibro flare, which was really amazing.
Well, that's the part that was the amazing part was that I really expected for us to really be in, especially with the sun the way it was and the heat and everything like that, not just the physical exertion, but sometimes the weather, is more of something for me and a lot of people with fibro with the weather. And that was a lot. And I thought, for sure I was going to get some headache migraine out of it for sure or something. And it was great. It was good. And I was just excited. You're right. I even show them pictures. I'm trying to keep going like this to people down. No, you don't understand. It was like this going up and down, and these rocks were like this. And it was really hard, and we did it. And we were good afterwards. So,
Hmm. I shared this on my Facebook page, and Georgie, hello, Georgie, asked, did we do anything special to like help recover? So I'll speak for myself and then maybe you can share what you did. So when we got home, I definitely used my magnesium lotion. I don't have a bathtub in my bathroom, which is the only thing I'm super sad about with my house, but I used my magnesium lotion on those sore muscles. I had been joking around that I was going to take some pain meds, but I actually didn't. I went to bed early, slept a little bit longer, and used some extra electrolytes to replace all of the electrolytes I sweated out that day. But I think that's really all I did.
Yeah, I don't think did I take was that the night that I ended up taking the bath? I think that might have been the night that I did, and I have the magnesiums, Epsom lavender stuff, the Dr. Teal's stuff, and I had packed some travel size stuff of that, and I put that in the bathtub, and I did that, and I had said I was gonna take some Tylenol PM or something like that too, and I did definitely go to bed a lot earlier than the other nights that we have been going to sleep and stuff. You gave me some of the electrolytes stuff to take. But otherwise, I really didn't do anything different at all than that, And I mean, the bath felt really nice just to be able to relax the muscles in there and everything like that. But yeah, that was kind of the extent of it.
Which is really impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, we impressed us. So I
I
hope
think,
y'all listening, I hope you're impressed too, because this was super exciting.
yeah, I think we've definitely impressed ourselves more than anybody else, but we have got that at least.
Now, what I think is also super fun about this is you didn't stop there. Visiting me was the first part of your vacation. You had a whole nother week exploring the Pacific Northwest with your husband. And I am sure you didn't just lie around in bed that whole week.
No, yours was supposed to be the resting vacation, and it wasn't supposed to be any of those heavy workouts or climbing or anything. And so you were just preparing me for what the next few days were going to be. Yeah, we took off. We did a whole bunch of stuff. We went to the San Juan Islands and we did a bunch of hiking and did some stuff there, whale watching and everything. But then we also went hiking back in the Olympic National Park. We stopped in a lot of different points and we did the hurricane hike hill that you're supposed to do. We went out on Rialto Beach twice, which is an hour walk on the beach. There's no choice. You have to go out on the beach out there. It's an hour one way and an hour back and everything. And we did that halfway the first night. And then the next day we went back and did it complete the next day. And we went and did, I don't know, a whole list of things, but my steps just kept going up and up. You and I were seeing about, oh my gosh, can you believe we did this much when we were together? And we were joking about it. And when I was doing stuff with Mark, we were between 4 and my highest, I think, was like 6.30 miles in a day. And most of it was, inclined kind of walking and hiking and stuff. And I didn't take any of my go-to meds for anything. I never had to use the heating pad the entire time. I think I used ice packs like 1 day or 2 days just to kind of make sure that, and it was for my knee, not for my fibro stuff, but just kind of take the little, it still swells every once in a while if I do a little too much with it, but just to keep the ache and the swelling down so it wouldn't be much of anything. And yeah, it was fantastic. And so now we're home, and the last 2 mornings I've gotten up and I've taken my pooch out walking, and we've done 2 mile hikes the last 2 mornings. So
That's awesome.
I know, I'm proud of myself. I found I was really disappointed yesterday when the hike I was going to do with my dog wasn't 2 miles. I thought for sure that what I was doing was going to be 2 miles, and I came back and it was like 1.88 or something. And I was devastated because I'm like, well, that would have been just the perfect, thing. And it was like, I never would have done that. Not a chance. And I wouldn't have been, I mean, if I'm the person that you met back in 2014, or the person I was before you met me, which was really, and I couldn't even have thought of even going on those. My husband was really, really concerned about going on this trip with me. He really didn't want to do it. And it was because he was positive that I wasn't going to be able to handle it. Not whether I wasn't going to actually be able to try it or that I didn't want to do it or anything like that, but he was really worried about what it was going to do to my body and what was going to happen with the fibro and stuff if we're going to be like halfway into the trip and then all of a sudden, I hit into some kind of flare and then he's going to have to try to figure out what to do to get me home in the best, way possible and stuff. And even today he was telling me that he was talking to our daughter and stuff. He goes, "No, you really should have seen mom, what she was doing and everything, and that she did it, and she was fine." And he was really, really surprised as well that it went as well as it did. But, it must have been you, it was that rest relaxation. And then you gave me just a little bit of a jump start. So
Well, perfect. I think this has happened to me several times in my fibro journey, but I think I'm doing like as best as I can do. And then something like this happens, and I'm like, oh, hey, maybe I can do even more. Maybe it could be even better than this.
that's definitely the way I feel now because there's no way I would have thought that. I mean, I'm not a walker by any means. I like to go and during the school year, I go swimming, and because swimming is the best exercise that my fibro body can handle. I love to go to the water aerobics class. I push it hard in there when we do it, but I love it. My body enjoys it, and I feel good. And I don't have any of the impact problems or anything that I always have afterwards with land exercises. But then after accomplishing what I just accomplished and how I feel afterwards, and I think that it shocked me because I didn't think that I could do that even before I came out to see you. There's no way I would have said that I could have walked a mile, let alone 2 miles, without having some kind of reaction afterwards of some kind and stuff. There's just no way I would have even thought that possible. And now the fact that I'm like looking at the darn thing and going, okay, we're almost there, telling my pooch that, okay, we're almost there. We got to make it just to that next area. And then we've done our miles. We can turn back and yeah, there's just no way I would have done that. It's way better than I've ever thought that I was going to ever be again. And I'm impressing everybody. I know my parents as well are just like unbelievably surprised and happy to see how far I've come in those few years.
hmm Now, from where we are looking back, it seems like hasn't really been all that long. But 8 years, like thinking 8 years into the future for the person who's listening to this and thinking, it's going to take 8 years for me to do that, it can feel really long and really hard. So, what would you say to them?
I think that, yeah, 8 years seems like it's a really long time, but it didn't just happen overnight where it's like I felt like 100% better or 80% better just like this. I mean, I have felt an increase of feeling better over the times. It's been slow by slow. After I got my sleep under control, where I had that really strict regiment and stuff and things that I do, I would feel better. I was able to go to like some of my adopted kiddos' games and stuff, like basketball games and things like that, that normally I would be in bed at that time of night, right? So I would allow myself Friday night to go to those things and I could do them and I could sit in the bleachers and do that, right? Just these little bitty celebration things that I couldn't do before, or by changing up my diet or doing different things. I was still able to do things. I can go kayaking. I can do that as something that I can do that makes me feel good. It's kind of like every year or every kind of whatever, I notice that I can do a little bit more because I've tweaked something, right? But I have had to look back on some things. Like there's a few things where like I'll contact you or I'll open up my notes from your class even and said, okay, I don't remember, what do we do for this again? What did we say helps this? Because I haven't had to use maybe that tool before in a really long time. Okay, I got to add this back in. I totally forgot about that. It's something that, oh yeah, I did used to do that. Why was I doing that again? And yep, and that did work. It gets there and it just, it may not take them 8 years either. You just don't know. Everybody's so different, right?
hmm
And it depends on what their goal is. Maybe their goal is to simply be able to go sit and watch a soccer game with their kids or their grandkids or whatever, and to be able to do that. That was my goal. I just wanted to be able to not miss one of my kids' activities. That's all I cared about. And I remember I missed one. That's all. And it was just devastating, but I remember that I missed it. I don't think she does, but I do. So for me, it's kind of like I just kept building on that afterwards and just kind of keep going from there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I know you had your knee surgery, which was one of like a big step forward, but was there anything else that was like a big thing that you did, or was it mostly just sort of picking away and little bit by little bit?
Well, my job changed, and that made a huge difference. And it isn't just so much just stress, first of all. The level of stress was a big difference because that was definitely causing problems with my flare and anxiety and everything else that was going along with it. So when I changed jobs, but then my movement and my seditation type stuff, like before, I was always at a desk usually. So I wasn't ever really getting up, even though when my doctor had even written notes saying she does need to be able to get up and move around, right? Because you need to have that. With my new job, it's great because I have this mix of walking and sitting, right? I'm going to wherever the kiddos are and I'm sitting down and I'm working with the students. And then I'm getting up and I'm going to another building or another classroom and I'm sitting down. And so I have this really great mix. And then while I'm doing that, that means I'm getting another fresh thing of water as I'm going. And so I kind of am getting that, which I know that I never drank enough water before and I needed to do it. So I kind of use those breaks and as the times that this is what I'm doing too. That made a huge difference by changing that along with the sleep hygiene. I did go to a functional doctor that I found, and that was a big step there where I had a huge healing phase go through too, because after kind of checking some things out and balancing some supplements that I needed to be on and everything. One thing that I'm really proud of is that when I started this journey 12 years ago, maybe 13 now, I was on lots of prescription medication and I was on 4 times a day, high dosages of most of the medications along with supplements. And because I've done all of these other things and added some very good supplements and stuff, natural things to it, I'm able to go down to, I take medication twice a day. I've eliminated quite a few meds, and the majority of them I'm on a really low dose that I've ever even been on and stuff. And so far, I still need those. I haven't been able to go off completely. I am trying to taper one of them down, which I was doing while I was out with you. And I was really worried because I brought the extra ones just in case that tapering them while I was on this trip wouldn't have been a good idea, because I just didn't know what was going to happen. But it's taken a lot of work to get to that point where I've been able to reduce some of the medication. And, my doctors have said we may not ever get you off all of the medication, and that's okay. You need some of these things for your body to be able to operate. And I'm the one asking them, I want to see where I can go, how low I can go, and then, but still manageable and have a good, be able to do things, but then be, you know, off of them as much as I can, or as at least as low as dosage. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't done all of these other little bitty things that go along the lines. I still have the fibro fog still kicks in, when there's certain things too much going on or weather and different things like that. But then I use notes and I use my phone for everything and screenshot, take pictures, whatever I have to do. And I know there's enough things that are tools out there that can help me so that that's not a big as issue as it was before electronics and everything else. And it was just, papers and pencils. I can't imagine going through that part of it without those extra tools. But it's not like everything's all gone. But, the migraines, I don't even remember if I had one. I was trying to talk about that, if I've had one this year or if it was like it started and I took my meds and then I slept it off, I think is what happened. And so before I would have been out and about for a couple days, I would have needed to sleep it off and everything. And yeah, so lots of little things have gotten me there, but a few of the big changes. The sleep, that was a big one. The functional doctor getting the right supplements and stuff to be able to help me get to that point. I think that was a really big, big point, and being able to eliminate some of the stress and get movement because I can understand wanting to sit in your chair because it hurt so bad to get out of the chair and do anything, it hurt. But knowing that the more I did the movement and the rest and the movement and the rest, then it didn't hurt when I was resting anymore, when I would decide to get up and everything. So I think it just is a matter of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people are looking for like the magic pill or the magic solution for fibromyalgia. And it's a lot of stuff. It's a complex condition and we need to address it in lots of ways.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we always talk about it being where it's, like none of us have it the same. We didn't get it the same. We can't treat it the same. It's just the way it's going to be. And unfortunately, it doesn't like to always stay the same with just us either. It'll decide, oh, you got us figured out, do you? Nope, we're going to change it up on you and we're going to surprise you with something different now. It's just kind of the way it goes. But I think that once you get a few of the things understood and you get some basic little things that you can chip off a little bit at a time and take some things, I think it makes a big difference because then it doesn't feel like everything is such big stuff that you have to do. If you can just get some of these basic day-to-day things manageable that way and you make those little changes, they're really not little changes when you look at the picture of things. They make such a difference in our lives. My alarm goes off at a certain time, and that's what time I take my evening medication, and then it goes off. And this is what time I go to bed, and I get reminded by when my daughter was at home, and now my husband and my one cat reminds me that it is now time to go to bed, and that you are taking too long, and it is now, So everybody's making sure that I keep my sleep hygiene correct, and they're right, because that's exactly what I need to do. It makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Your cat tells you when to go to bed. I love
She
that.
does. Oh, she does. She was yelling at me last night because I wasn't getting there fast enough. So
Well, that's the answer, folks. You need a cat to tell you
you
when to go to bed.
have to tell you when to go to bed. That's right. And a dog to wake you up in the morning. You'll be all set.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, but also sharing my adventure. I think it's so important for us to share stories like these because so often, with fibromyalgia, we're kind of given the negative news, right? Like there's no cure, your life has changed, but you can still have a good life and still have good
That's right.
adventures.
There are adventures out there for you. Absolutely.
And that wraps up my interview with Melissa. I hope you enjoyed hearing about our little adventure, and I hope that our stories give you hope. You can feel better with fibromyalgia. It might take you 8 years to get to the place where we are. That's how long it took us, right? But there are things that you can do every day to help you feel a little bit better and a little bit better. And for those of you who have emailed in wondering about having surgery, whether it would be a good idea with fibromyalgia or not, I hope that Melissa's story really encourages you to go ahead and try that. Often these things can be a major step forward in managing fibromyalgia pain. You've heard me say it many times on this podcast. Fibromyalgia is an amplifier. In managing fibromyalgia, we kind of have to approach it from two directions. One is turning down the amplification that fibromyalgia does. So we need to treat the fibromyalgia piece of things. But we can also lessen the pain by treating the things that fibromyalgia is amplifying. In Melissa's case, by getting that knee replacement. So don't be afraid to address those things, but definitely make sure you have good conversations with your doctors and make sure that they understand your situation as a chronic pain patient. I also want to mention, as Melissa talked about in the interview, she was one of my very first students. In fact, I think she was the second person to enroll in that very first class. If you are interested in learning a lot more about how to manage your fibromyalgia, if you want to really understand the medications that are used, if you want to know what the supplements are that you can use instead of those medications, if you want to learn all the tips and tricks from somebody who's been doing this a very long time, I would love to invite you to join our next Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor training. That class begins on Tuesday, August 30th, and we would love to have you if you're interested. To be honest, this is the best way that I know to improve your fibromyalgia. The last class, if you heard episode 88, the last episode, that most recent class improved their fibromyalgia impact questionnaire scores by 62% on average. What could your life be like if your fibromyalgia was less than half of what it is now? That's what's possible. If you want to check out the training program, just go to ifcinstitute.com and you will find information there. Of course, you can always go to today's show notes. It's fibromyalgiapodcast.com/89, and we'll have links there as well. And now I've got this week's listener shout out for you. This is an email I received from Sandra in North Carolina, and she did give me her permission to share her name. She says, I have been listening to your podcasts, and for the first time since 2018, I feel like I'm not so alone. I have not been officially diagnosed with fibromyalgia, but like so many others, I have made the conclusion that this is what I've been suffering from. In the last 4 years, I have seen sleep doctors, migraine, muscle and spine neurologists, orthopedics, physical therapy, chiropractors, massage therapists, also rheumatologist, endocrinologist, and an eye neurologist. I'm sure I'm leaving something out. And she puts a laughing face. She says, it's just been so many, but all my issues are starting to make sense. The worst part for me has been the loneliness I feel and not being believed by the best doctors. Not one of them has ever mentioned that I might be suffering from this. I'm just tired, but the more I understand, the better my state of mind is, and I can feel my anxiety lifting. Thank you, Tami, for your podcast. Thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing this. And I just know that there are people out there who just hearing this email from you makes them feel less alone. Sharing our suffering, sharing our experiences, sharing our stories is such a powerful thing in helping other people not feel quite so alone. So again, thank you so much, Sandra. Now, our next episode is going to be episode 90, which of course is our next Ask the Coach. And this episode, I'm going to be answering a question, just giving some basic information about the 3 FDA-approved fibro meds. I actually got an email the other day asking for just some basic information on that, some information that's not coming from the drug manufacturers who are trying to sell a product or people who are maybe saying medications are a bad thing. I'm just going to share the facts with you. So I hope you'll be back here for our next episode. I'll see you then. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.